So, what I'm going to talk about today is detecting guilty knowledge through eye movement analysis. So, a lot of the presentations we've seen are about lying and detecting lies, whereas this is sort of how you uncover the presence of concealed information. So, this has been done kind of historically through response time, polygraph, which I'm sure everyone's aware of, event-related potentials. Um, an emerging field in this area is eye tracking. So that's the main research method which we used in this study. So the idea of this study is basically previous literature around this topic area has shown that subjects or people who have guilty knowledge will tend to orientate attention either away from a guilt revealing stimulus or towards it. So there's a discrepancy within the literature. So that was one thing that this project aimed to address. The other part of this project was, and this is the novel part, is it used a cueing paradigm based on Posner 1980. So if you're not familiar with that study, it basically showed that attention can be involuntarily drawn to a particular stimuli. So this study basically looked at whether involuntarily drawing attention to a guilt revealing stimulus could basically reveal if a person possessed knowledge about that stimulus. So how we made it, so basically we used 8 video clips. 6 clips basically created like a CCTV camera perspective of the psychology building in Nottingham. One of the clips was a point of view video which basically detailed a laptop theft. So that was the guilty point of view clip. One video clip showed a bike ride, and that was the non-guilty point of view clip. So this will make sense when you see the design slide. So this is what our design was. So it was a mixed design. We had guilty knowledge, guilty versus non-guilty. And then the second variable was the content of the cued target. So empty, bystander, or criminal. We took some basic eye movement measures. So with eye tracking, the basic approach is to just gauge the visual attention of a person towards a stimulus, essentially. So we took fixations, which is basically how long the eye sits still on a particular part of the stimulus. So we did number of fixations, time to first fixate, among others, and also response time to report the crime occurring. So what the CCTV feed had was 10 cues, which were basically areas of static which were edited into the 6 feeds. So they directed the subject's attention to either an empty feed, a bystander feed, or a criminal feed. And we made areas of interest on each one of these feeds post the cue. So the cue was basically used to draw the participant's attention to the relevant feed. So the guilty participants watched the guilty point of view video, and the innocents watched the innocent point of view video. So the guilty people would then have the knowledge, or the make-believe knowledge that they'd committed a crime. They were then taken into a room in the psychology building, and then on screen was presented these 6 clips, and then some words said on screen said, "There's been a theft in psychology building, and you're a suspect. Press a button if you see a crime occurring." So if you imagine you're a guilty participant, you'd be essentially watching yourself commit a crime, and an innocent participant would have no knowledge. The cues, as discussed, basically drew people's attention to each relevant feed. So what did we find? So guilty people made fewer fixations and took longer to first fixate to the cued feed, regardless of content, which suggests, and that was at statistical significance level, that suggests some kind of attempt to control their eye movements and basically look away. A really interesting finding was a positive moderate correlation was found between the net dwell time to the actual crime as it was occurring and the response time to report the crime occurring. So it suggested that guilty participants were basically seeing themselves commit the crime and were taking longer to report it. as a way of hiding their guilty information. And this is a novel demonstration of basically using simultaneous measures to detect deception. That's the end. Thank you.